Hello there, and welcome to Pink Milk, your Star Wars podcast for us super fans and those usually forced to listen. Today is someday, and someday I'm talking to Ben from the Khetanna cast. Get ready, it's time to drink up. My name is Bryan, your host. Normally, I am joined with my husband, Tom, but unfortunately, we have had some tragic news here in the Berry family, and my mother-in-law, Tom's wonderful mother, passed away this last weekend. So, my family and I are packing up, getting ready to fly across the country to say goodbye to a beautiful soul who was taken. And we're all heartbroken here. So this podcast was recorded prior to all of that, and I had a great conversation with Ben from the Khetanna cast. You should listen to them if you haven't, but Ben and I discussed Leia, and this past weekend I've been channeling all the Leia I can get. I don't think this conversation could have come at a better time for me personally to learn all that she has to teach about hope and resilience and how to stand strong when you're feeling weak for all those around you. So thank you, Star Wars. Thank you again for being there. Ben, thank you for giving me such a wonderful conversation. And I really do wish this episode could have come out when I had a more joyous intro. But alas, I don't. If you are listening, and please put Tom in your prayers or your thoughts or however you send your positive energy to my husband, Tom, because Tommy is the best person I know in the entire world, and I love him with all my heart. And he's really hurting right now, so we could really use your support here in the Berry house, all right? Until then, sorry for such the downer. Enjoy this great conversation, and we will see you when we see you. If there is a little break in the show, just understand why. All right. Thank you very much and enjoy this episode. Well, hello, everyone. I am very excited to have this conversation with Ben, who is certainly not the worst, and I can't wait for them to change their Twitter handle. But this is Ben from the Khetanna cast. Hello, Ben.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going very well. We've had like 10 minutes of chit-chatting, and now we're going to get into some Leia. I'm very, very excited. We've been talking Robin, and so I'm already on Cloud 9.
I think it's a good transition to go from Robin to Leia.
I think so, too. Fierce, badass bitches. I think, yeah.
Swedish
there we
pop
go.
sensations. Maybe it doesn't go all the way across the board.
well, you know.
Although there is a fantastic Swedish disco remix of Leia's theme from, I think, about 82 that I found one time. I'll have to send it to you.
Okay, yes. So, Ben sent me an amazing, when was that, 1983?
Yeah, that would have been 83, because that would have been concurrent with Return of the Jedi.
Some sort of synth remix of Laptinek, and I was here for it. As all of our Pink Milk listeners know, I'm a gigantic Max Rebo stan. Ben here is a huge Slice Noodles fan, so it's a great match.
Mm-hmm. We just need someone who loves Droopy McCool, so if you're out there, let us know.
All one of you. Also, I think we should go ahead and start the hashtag SciShot first. Because I'm all about the Hunt for Zero. I love that episode. It's great. That is great Star Wars for me.
Anything that opens with a Star Wars parody of Anything Goes from Temple of Doom.
Yes.
Like, there are certain times when the Clone Wars pushes over into, could it possibly get gayer territory? And I think that might be the pinnacle, which is Cy Snoodles doing a parody of the opening of Temple of Doom.
And then just to top it off, we're going to put Zero in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Snooty baby. Oh, all right. Well, tonight we are not here to discuss Cy Snoodles, even though I could probably do an entire hour-long podcast on Cy and the Jizz Whalers and Max Rebo and all the goodness. Quick side note, when I was in high school, I was a DJ for one of our dances, and I went to a very Mormon school, and I thought it was hilarious because my partner and I, he was DJ Wisdom, and I was DJ Jism after the Jizz Whalers. And I got to say Jizz and had it printed on school material with the word Jizz in there. And I thought it was hilarious.
That is the level of chaos that I am here for. And I'm always ready to support.
So we are here tonight to discuss our princess, our general, the one and the only Leia. And I'm very excited to get into some stuff with Ben here because she's your favorite character, correct?
Oh, yeah. Far and away.
Awesome. I love it. I have some interesting things. We touched on this. I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago on After Dark, we discussed the special editions. And I had some conversations about some of my own personal relationship with Leia and what it means. And it probably doesn't look good for me and where I used to stand. But something that I think queer people have to deal with a lot, especially men, and my case specifically, gay men, that I'm interested to have this conversation with you a little bit, because, we got to make it queer.
Oh, and it will be queer.
It's going to be very queer, and I am here to celebrate Princess Leia's on-again, off-again British accent with some tea, and just to be British enough, I put a little cream in my tea this evening. Just for you, Leia. I wish I had my little cracker. But I don't have any crackers. So, all right. Ben, this is what we usually do when we have a guest on. What is your favorite Star Wars?
Okay, so this is a complicated two-part question, and I'll make it quick. My favorite Star Wars movie is Return of the Jedi. That is the best Star Wars movie as far as what populist, blockbuster, popcorn eating, just like kicking your feet on the sofa, having the best time of your life. That's Return of the Jedi. It's got everything that you could ever possibly need. It has perfect vignettes. There's cute teddy bears. It's fantastic. As far as the strongest film in the Star Wars saga, right now for me, obviously, you've got Empire. I would put Last Jedi right up next to it. It's slowly grown up in my esteem to the point of where they're awesome. Side by side for me at this point.
That's big. That's rad. I would love to have TLJ there.
Well, if we need to do a watch along. See, that takes a little bit of warming up too, honestly.
Yeah, I try, and I really love The Last Jedi. Like, I love it. I think I love The Last Jedi for the reasons a lot of people flat out do not like it, which is where people are. People either love it or hate it for the exact same things. That's like where the division seems to be. But the humor, I just can't. I can't do it.
So the first 10 minutes of that movie is a little bit rough for you, isn't it?
Uh-huh. I have said this before. When that movie started, I had a little bit of the same feeling I did when I saw The Phantom Menace on opening night. And the first 10 minutes of The Phantom Menace still don't really do it for me. But I was like, this weird, like, I am a pink milk, half full glass dude. I want to love everything. And there's this awkward pit in the stomach when you're not liking a Star Wars. And I'm like, I don't, but I can't. I have to love it.
Oh, I know the feeling. I had one back in 2019 for about 2.5 hours.
Oh, yeah, that one's, well, no, yeah, again, we've said this. You can listen to my journey all on mic from Cloud 9, high over, like head over heels. I'm so excited. This is the greatest Star Wars movie ever that to exist, to the next time going, I don't know if I like this, to the third time I saw it going, oh my God, I don't like it. And then like this feeling of I don't like it, but I love certain parts of it. I'm trying to figure it out.
See, it's a thing we talk about all the time on the Khetanna cast. A big motto for me with Star Wars, because at this point it's huge and there's so many movies and shows and books and comics that there's some Star Wars for everybody, and not all Star Wars can be your Star Wars. And thinking that it can all be is a little bit immature. That's the sad fact of the matter, right? So sometimes the Star Wars is not for me. That was a movie that was definitely not for me. I'm glad that I was not hosting a podcast the night that came out, because I sat in the parking lot with my husband and we stared straight off into the distance for about 15 minutes before anyone could start the car. Because we're like, well, that happened, didn't it? I would not have been able to form words for about 2 weeks after it, because I kept going back, and a lot of people had the same relationship with Phantom Menace, right? Was you stayed and you were in line and you were ready to go, you had your tickets, and then you saw it, and you went home, you didn't talk to anybody, and then you went back the next day just in case. Like, maybe I was in a bad mood, maybe there was something weird in the Diet Dr. Pepper, I don't know. And then you watch again, and you're like, shit, this is the same movie, isn't it? This is the same movie. And then you go back just one more time just to be on the safe side. I ended up doing it 4 times with Rise of Skywalker just to see. I don't know why. Sometimes we have self-perpetuating cycles of self-abuse, and we have to work through this. Yep. But there are things in it that I do feel very strongly for. There's some choices I do like. They will come up in tonight's episode, obviously, because I think there's some fantastic Leia decisions that will come up with great storytelling opportunities in the future. So if you think of Star Wars as every individual episode is opening up more opportunities for more stories with these characters, there's some great things that they left that we can work off of.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's what we have to tell ourselves to get through the day.
You know, I mean, the Rise of Skywalker gave me Rey Skywalker, and that has so much personal meaning for me. And I think it is a perfect cap to the saga, and so it gave me that, and I'm cool with it because of that.
That's
and
fair.
Everything else
I'm right there with you.
There's parts I'm like, oh no, anyways. But yeah, the Phantom Menace. I think the Last Jedi, I had the same thing. So I didn't like it when it was opening. It just threw me off. It's like, oh God, I'm not into this. It looks beautiful, and even that, I think it looks beautiful, but I don't think it looks much like a Star Wars movie. It's too plain for me. Like there's too. But I mean, I love it, and I'm cool with I'm not gonna be that dude who's like, it has to look like this all the time. But to me, Rogue One, I think is the most beautiful looking Star Wars movie. I think it's a perfect blend of practical with where we are now. Every nook and cranny on every square inch of that thing, there's something moving and talking and doing something. And the Last Jedi was very simple.
I think
beautiful.
Yeah, I think you're to try to phrase it the way that I'm hearing it is. Yeah. So Last Jedi was a little too clean for you, because it's definitely not a plain movie by any any stretch of the imagination, because it is art directed to within an inch of its life. My favorite tweet recently, God, it couldn't have been recently now. It's probably been a year ago. Who knows how time works in the new times? But someone said that the main characters of The Last Jedi are Rey, Kylo, and the cinematographer. I would completely agree. 100%. That movie is gorgeously shot, but visually it is very striking that it is different from Star Wars.
Yeah. And I'm here, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but I was like, it took me, I'm not gonna lie, 2 or 3 viewings to just kind of okay. I like my George Lucas has to have, literally every single inch, there's something going on. And the throne room, you have these 2 beautiful red curtains and a throne.
And a window. We still don't know what the window's for, and it doesn't matter. See, I floated out of the theater for my Last Jedi experience, because that was the strange, weird, surrealist Star Wars that I really wanted. And didn't know what I wanted until I got it. So if it's one of those that it's not your favorite thing, if it wasn't a movie that spoke to you, I feel for you. I know there's some people who have legitimate feelings about it that don't involve ooh, girl, do thing, and me no like. Or dude be have feel, me no like feel. Those are not valid complaints, but there are people who have, their own gripes with it. In the same way that I've had people who I really respect and like their opinions try to teach me that The Rise of Skywalker is a better film than what I think it is, and I love them. I disagree with them, but it's okay. We can still be friends. I do not lose any sleep. I've never gotten a comment section to yell at somebody over their opinion of a movie.
No. I love talking to the dudes at Blue Bantha Milko, because Matt in particular, and Sean's come around, but Matt loves that movie. And the way he can articulate certain things that I did not like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn to see it that way because I really like that take. That take is amazing. So I'm just going to start watching it like that and then like get used to it. But in Last Jedi, that scene when they get to Snoke. Mm-hmm. Snoke is so good in that movie.
Oh, he's like so good. Way better than he has any right to be.
Yes, like, oh my God. I was like, I am here for this. And to this day, I feel that The Last Jedi is probably the biggest Star Wars movie. Mm-hmm. Like, I left that theater going, oh my God, there's never been a bigger Star Wars movie. I've never been to so many planets in my entire life. Oh my God, this is perfect. And then I'm like, we didn't even go anywhere. Not really. And it's so big because I went on this gigantic emotional journey that like took me to so many places. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
And that, to compare it with Empire, out of all of the Star Wars sagas, that is the movie that takes you the furthest from where you expect that to go. Because they both follow up the good, rip-roaring, good time sci-fi fantasy adventure, and then take it on a very strange emotional journey. Because people forget, since a lot of us, maybe we grew up with Empire, or it's been 40 years since Empire came out, that movie was not exactly super well received by the fan base. It was extremely contentious. There were people who were incensed at the way that film ended, or the character choices that it made. There's some fantastic old like Fanthetrax fan letters for people who were so upset that Han seemed to be the person that Leia was going to end up with. Like, there's some amazing angry fangirls, and I love shippers because they have always existed. And sci-fi fandom is built on the backs of women. Like, I love these women. They've always been around. But if you can find those letters, they are worth the read. They're amazing. Yep.
No, that is some fun stuff. And more Skywalker parentage and Star Wars parentage that had people in very big uproar, even back then. So, Skywalker gave us that, part 2, I guess. Okay, so Jedi is my favorite movie, too. I'm up there with why, I think. I think it is the most Star Wars movie of all Star Wars movies. I feel that way about Solo, too. Like, I love that Solo's all these separate sideline adventures that shouldn't tie together, but, like, they do kind of tie together, and it's just, like, rip-roaring good time. And then underneath all of that rip-roaring good time, there's some really big stuff to chew on. Like, this is going to be... I'm looking forward to talking about the Return of the Jedi, because Return of the Jedi gave me my favorite Leia moment of all moments, and is what turned me into a gigantic Leia fan. So, I'm excited about that. Who's your favorite character?
Well, it's Leia. We all know that one. I like to tell people I have a triad of favorite characters where Leia is the peak and the pinnacle for that, and then right underneath are Luke and Ahsoka side by side. I think those are the three characters that we get the most emotional growth with throughout, because we've seen the longest period of their life. We almost follow them from, well, the Skywalker twins from infancy to death. From Ahsoka from, what is she, 14? When we first seen the Clone Wars? Up into at least in her mid-40s. As far as we've seen so far.
And I'm very curious what she is after she came out of the world between worlds. Is she still just a normal person? In quotes? Or, you know, I don't know. Morai was still there. So there's some spiritual connection with Ahsoka that I'm not even sure if it is like fully flesh and blood exactly. I don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing
I think all three of those characters have a lot in common when it comes to an ascension in the Force, which is something that I talk about a lot on my show. I love the weirdness of Force philosophy and really trying to dive into that from a more kind of mystical element, because we know where the influences for that come from. That's George's influence with Zen Buddhism, which was a big influence. Larry Kasdan obviously brought that in on Empire. Irvin Kershner was the director, who was a practicing Zen Buddhist at the time. So there's a lot of that mixed into it. And so if you look at it from that standpoint and not necessarily lightsaber go vroom, which is fine. We like lightsaber go vroom. That's a good time. But if you try to look at it from a more Eastern philosophy in a way, the story of Ascension is something that all three of those characters are on that journey towards. So I think that's where we're going to go with Ahsoka. Eventually. That's my thought. We don't know. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but that's my hill that I'll die on for right now.
Yeah, I think I might be with you on, I think they're my top 3 characters. Of like, you know, we all have our Max Rebos that don't really mean anything.
Oh, yeah.
They're my favorite anyways, but...
Ask me about Logray any day of the week.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, I think Luke, Leia, and Ahsoka are all Force users who view and interact with the Force in such vastly different ways that it's really fascinating. All of their goals are to help people, you know, and varying levels of helping those people. Because, like, I've said it before, I feel Luke is very... I have an interesting relationship with Luke as it goes on. Some days I feel like he's a very weak character in a lot of ways. But he's also really selfish. He's the most selfish out of the three of them. He will help those, I feel, from what my opinion of Luke is, will help those in his circle. And everybody else kind of benefits from that, if that makes sense. Leia looks at such a big picture that she loses some of the individualism. And Ahsoka is selfless, but understands the outliers closely around her, if that makes sense. She's not concerned with the galaxy at large. She's concerned with the people in front of her at that moment in time, but those people shift. Whereas Luke's people never really shifted. He found his family; those were the people that he stuck by. And because his found family had such influence over the galaxy at large, I feel the galaxy at large benefited. Well, that's my view of Luke, which is probably a hot take for some.
No, but I don't think it's a hot take. I think it's a pretty textual take. I think that we do have to give him the grace that he has the least foundation to work off of between the three of those characters. Leia is raised by Bell and Brea. So from the moment that she's born, she's taught the importance of duty and how your actions affect a wider whole. Ahsoka was trained by Anakin at a time when Anakin really had something to teach. But then just by the Jedi, she got the best of that philosophy, right? She didn't take all of the toxic parts of that religion with her. As far as we know, I think she still will have to have a story beat of coming to terms with some of that indoctrination. But Luke, unfortunately, he's just a kid from the middle of absolute nowhere with an uncle who didn't really give a shit about him. I'll try to refrain from swearing. I'm sorry. I forget that I'm on pink milk. I have to behave myself. But Luke is raised with someone who does not really care. He does not have kind of the emotional foundation that you would have if he was in a nurturing, caring household. So when he's given this huge, huge responsibility and this power that he suddenly doesn't know exactly what to do with it, he's not getting a lot of training from Obi-Wan, who I love Obi-Wan as a character, but especially as he gets older, Obi-Wan's doing whatever it is that Obi-Wan is doing, and God love him, but he's not exactly the best mentor that ever happened. Yoda's not around for much longer. So he just doesn't have that same foundation that the other two got. He didn't have that to work with. So when he has to start a Jedi Order, he doesn't really know what to do with that. He's doing his best. He really is trying as hard as he possibly could. That's why he's searching so hard for Jedi artifacts and the history and trying to follow things literally by the book, because he wants to be the best person that he can be. He just doesn't have that emotional center that these other two characters do.
100%. Yeah, Tom and I by the time this episode airs, I think it'll be 2 episodes ago, episode 68, fostering and adopting in Star Wars, and Tom and I touch on that a little bit. And then our next episode on After Dark, Mark, Em, and I are really going to dive in deeper on a character level of the children of Star Wars and the choices they make young and once they find their found family and how that goes forward, because all of them, come from somewhere broken. But you're right. Like we just talked about that, Tom and I, of Luke. I don't know if they really loved him. They cared for him, and Beru may have, but I don't even know. Like, I don't know. Owen, I don't think did. I think Luke was always a burden, and he took care of him, and of course he loved him, but I don't know if he was never something that Owen wanted.
And to be fair to these poor little moisture farmers in the middle of Tatooine, they met this stepbrother once. He's definitely kind of a weird edgelord kid who may or may not have slaughtered an entire village to the point of where he probably kicked up some Tusken aggression to the rest of the local community, right? And then all of a sudden, here comes some other dude from that weird cult that he's in, right after the whole galaxy has found out that they've turned on the entire Republic and they're in danger. And they're like, hey, here's this kid, you have to have him now, bye. So at the very least, even though they didn't give him what he needed as a character, they didn't throw him away. They could have easily have driven right off to the Jundland Waste and chucked him, and nobody would have ever known. It's not like he has a birth certificate.
Yep. No, 100%. 100%. But I agree. Luke and Anakin have two of the worst foundations to grow from. And look where they both went. Both those characters went to a very dark place. And one came through, but wouldn't have. Luke would have fallen if Vader didn't go. I believe. I think Luke would have fallen right then and there. I don't think he would have been able to handle it. And he either would have been killed or he would have turned dark, I think, if Anakin didn't save him.
I could see that. I could very easily see that. I think Luke may not have survived that, honestly. I think he probably would have just died.
Yep. So, okay, and now we have Leia, as you said, is brought up by Bail and Bria, who she had a very fortunate life. Two very powerful and influential parents who loved her and wanted her. Right there in the movie, we always wanted a baby girl, and took her in as her own, did a great job by never lying to her, exactly. And really, she had two parents who were both 100% invested in her. And then the benefits of being royalty and money.
See, that's the fun part about Leia as a character, is she really is the perfect embodiment of how to use privilege appropriately.
Yep.
Because she had literally everything at her disposal that you could want. She's a princess of Alderaan, which is an extraordinarily rich and influential planet. So she could have easily decided to just stay home and not get involved in anything. Her parents did not push her into the rebellion. Huge shout out to Claudia Gray's Leia, Princess of Alderaan. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it or read it, I suppose is how most people interact with books who aren't old and have to use Audible. It's a fantastic version of young Leia, and seeing that she followed her parents' footsteps without them knowing. Just the kind of person she is at her core. But I don't think that if the roles had been reversed and Luke had been able to grow up on Alderaan, that Leia would have been as strong a person without that foundation from Brea, and especially Bail. It seems like those two had a really special relationship.
Yep. Yeah, that's interesting to think about. If that, we talk because of a certain point of view where Yoda was the one who he wanted Leia, got Luke, but imagine who Luke would have been if the roles were totally reversed. I don't know. Luke would have been hanging out at Tashi Station all the time.
See, I think Luke still would have followed that call. I think that is built into their blood. I don't think he would have been as effective at it. Because when it comes to diplomacy, that's just not necessarily Luke's bag. I think you could have raised him up with dictation, which clearly I didn't have, or teach him all of this kind of diplomacy and everything that would be important for that job. I don't know that he would ever be as good at it as Leia is, because that just comes naturally to her. She knows how to play the game. Her interpersonal skills are not as good as Luke, which is fun because they are on the opposite end of that. Luke, when it comes to the group, gets a little bit weak, but he's really good at caring about a person right in front of him. Leia has a hard time narrowing down the picture to one person because her brain, the way she's been raised, is to constantly think about how every action affects the larger whole. She has a really hard time, and it affects her relationship with Han. I think they're a fantastic couple, and that they're great for each other. They love each other beyond any other person in the entire galaxy. They would always be there for each other. They're just not great at relationships, and that's a thing that happens sometimes.
Oh, I love that you just 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's so wow. There's just hold on. There's a lot there. There's a lot. I don't know if it's been discussed thoroughly in the books, but Leia's skill set at diplomacy is heard as well. But I also think there's some of the Force at play there, and how she can read the emotions of a room. And as you were speaking, I'm like, what if, I think about Jean Grey from X-Men. I'm a pretty big X-Men fan, right? And Professor X, when she was younger, part of her problem was that she felt everybody all the time. And it was so overwhelming that she couldn't connect. And when she got too close to someone, she oftentimes hurt them. with her mental powers of like being too focused on one person. And I wonder if there's something similar with Leia of I feel everything, so I don't know how to feel a thing. And I think that's a really, I've never really thought about that until you started talking about it. I'm like, I think there could be something to that.
Yeah, I think it's a nature
really
and nurture thing for her. I think that's the way that she was raised, but her relationship to the Force is very, very natural. And so is Luke's, obviously. His piloting skills, that's very attuned with his Force abilities, and he had no realization of that growing up. Leia's is much more on an empathetic level, and then also just on a self-control level. Like, this is a woman that, if you're looking for a character to strive to be like, so I have often called her the patron saint for non-believers, because that's a character that, despite the fact that she does have some actual human kind of flaws and weaknesses, her general demeanor and how she handles herself throughout all of her trials and adversities is something that a lot of us can really look forward, or to look at and kind of adjust accordingly. Because there have been times that I have no problem saying, like, by the time this airs, I'll be 31, I guess. But I'm a full-grown man, and then sometimes I will be in a situation that I will still be thinking, like, well, how would Leia handle this situation?
Yep.
Because sometimes it's really hard to pull from reality when fiction is so deeply embedded into us, and we take fiction in a different way. I think we absorb fiction, and we absorb stories even more so than we do with real people that we know. Because we are the stories that we tell ourselves as a human animal. That's kind of how we've developed what we think our worldview is with stories. Star Wars is the same thing. It's a great pew-pew space adventure, but at its heart, it is specifically rooted in myth. And like all myth, it's how we relate to the world is through the stories that we tell ourselves about it, even if that world is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yep. I mean, honestly, I mention that a lot. And Tom's really helped me over our time together figure it out. But Star Wars is, for me, how I've always been able to tap into my emotions. That's how I can get where I need to go. It's always been that way for me on a human level. To tap into some of those things is really difficult for me. To find the way to describe how I'm feeling about X, Y, or Z, about whatever it is. And Star Wars has always been that for me. So, and Tom, when he first, he's like, I think it's your religion. And I'm like, oh God, I'm not that nerd. Like, oh no, I'm not getting the book of Huttese and learning. Like, no, that's like, but the more like I really let it sit in, and being with Tom, who is very religious and, you know, has a very good relationship with God between the two of them, that I was like, I think he might be right. Like, that is what I turn to, and I find faith in the lessons that I've been able to get from it. And for me, it is in some ways more than fiction. I just happen to know who these writers are. But, you know, these characters, I love the way you were talking about fiction and how we absorb it. And it's interesting, and it's making me think about sometimes our expectations and people who are into Star Wars as much as like we are, who are not just on Twitter or whatever to be a jerk, but like are really affected by it. You know, one of the things that you can turn to Leia in your moment to find where you need to go, because you know Leia. And the parts of Leia you don't know, you write the story for. Whereas human beings, sometimes we think we know someone, and we think we know how someone that we care about will react to something, but then they give us something different. And it's always jarring. And I can understand, like, when people were really upset about Luke in The Last Jedi, for me, that's where I always thought he would go. The Luke that we got in the EU was the reason I never really bonded to the EU, because that was not Luke. For me, that was Luke in A New Hope. And he had matured so much more past that. And why did he regress? And they never tackled any of the dark stuff anymore. And then when they did, it was Luke. So they couldn't even have Luke do it. And I'm like, and it was just not interesting to me. I was like, this is not interesting. And I'm sure I missed out on a lot of really great stories because of that, but I could never connect to him because that wasn't my Luke. So I'm like, okay, I've never gotten mad at the people who say that's not my Luke, if you're going to be nice about it. But like, I can understand because it was a 180 for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I just saw that as a natural progression from where we left at Return of the Jedi. But, you know, that's something that film or art or music does for us. It doesn't talk back. Once it's recorded, mm-hmm. it's done. And so our relationship with those characters off screen are our relationships with those characters, which is really interesting. And I love that you can look to Leia like that. I mean, that's what I do. That's Ahsoka is that for me. Mm-hmm. Luke is my childhood hero. I love Luke Skywalker, but I have a very different, I feel very differently about Luke as I get older and have children from the foster system and have, like, I look at him very, very differently now. And it's not a dislike at all, because Luke Skywalker is a good person and he wants to do what's best. But I just don't think he is the strongest person in a lot of ways. And I think circumstance brought him there for sure. But he also used his circumstance like a crutch a lot of times, I feel like.
And I think as I get older, I realize that Luke, for me, my relationship with Luke is very similar to my relationship with myself. I think that his emotional journey is very similar to some stuff that I've gone through. So I look at him as more of an embodiment of the kind of person that I feel like we all are at our core. He's a very, very human person. He's realistic. Leia is aspirational, even though there's fantastic writing that brings her down to a more human level. And I want more of that. I want more Claudia Gray. Yeah. Honestly, Claudia, please just write me a Leia story in an envelope, send it to me, and I'll keep it. It can be my story. And I won't share it with anybody. I'll make you breakfast, whatever that's what I want.
Yep. She's 100% my favorite Star Wars writer.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like she still... Oh, God, Bloodline was so good.
Oh,
like,
it's so perfect.
It's amazing, and I'm upset that we didn't get any of that. I'm so mad. But she can get... I feel she is very similar to Dave Filoni, and I love Dave Filoni because I feel like Claudia Gray has a respect for the prequels and what they did. She looks at the whole of Star Wars, not the bits that she likes and the bits that she grew up with. She looks at Star Wars in totality, filters it through her brain. So we get some of those more political things. And, you know, Star Wars is now it's only really 1/3 of Star Wars, but it's 1/3 of Star Wars, the politics. And I'm so excited that I can't wait till The Mandalorian starts getting into that world. I think we'll get there eventually. We started to in season 2 a little bit with the New Republic stuff. But what she doesn't lose is the childlike wonder that is Star Wars. And it's hard. It's hard to walk that line.
I think she and Dave do a very similar thing where they understand the mythic elements of Star Wars. So even though I don't know for a fact if Claudia kind of knows Star Wars inside and out, I know she's written in all the different eras. I don't know if she's a Wikipedia kind of gal. That might not be in her personality, but she understands the mythic underpinnings of these stories. So she knows how to craft that. And then as a writer is very talented at finding the human stories in that. And Dave does the same thing. Which is, I think, you can see Dave's mentorship by George, because George is really good at the mythic underpinnings of these stories. The human element is just difficult for him as a writer, and that just it is what it is. I love George. I will always love George. He's not the best human writer. Those character moments are a little more difficult for him. You got that from Larry Kasdan when we moved further into the series. I think Dave did that same thing, as he took the building blocks that he got from George and then move to a very small character place. So you can have a huge battle. Like Clone Wars is the most enormous battle-laden story of almost all of Star Wars, even almost more than the Galactic Civil War, because it's all clones, robots, shooty. But he finds these extraordinarily human, touching moments in that we would never have gotten if Attack of the Clones hadn't happened, which I will be very open. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie. I watched it for the first time in probably about 12 years the other day. Didn't like it any more than the last time I saw it.
But that was Ben. Thank you very much.
But like I said, with these movies, that may not be your story, but that opens the groundwork for so many more stories to come off of that. I would never have got the Clone Wars. I never would have Ahsoka if Attack of the Clones didn't exist. So That's the fun part of Star Wars is you take
Ding, ding, ding.
take what you can get off of it.
Yeah, I think George's storytelling style, especially with Star Wars, is the myth. And I think George likes a very loose, defined character so that people can see themselves in it. And that doesn't always make for the best screenwriting. If I feel like if you can like I love the prequels. I think as I get older, and I'm an OT kid. Like I'm 41 years old. I am an OT kid. But I go back to the prequels more than I do the OT, which is really strange to me as I'm older. Because it wasn't that I was never a prequel hater. I've always loved them. But like Attack of the Clones is my number 2 favorite Star Wars movie. For some of the same reasons that I love Solo and Return of the Jedi. Like, I feel like it is just all these different things going on, but you've got to dig for that subtext, but it's there. Like you said, Clone Wars couldn't exist without Attack of the Clones. And we all went into the Attack of the Clones going, oh my God, we're finally going to get to the Clone Wars. And then we didn't get it. And we're like, oh God, I can't wait for episode 3 because we're going to finally get the Clone Wars. Oh, just kidding. It's over. Like, wait, what? Okay. Okay. But I think, and it's like, I look at my youngest son, Michael, who was 4 when he was here, and he's my other super fan in the house. Everybody else is forced to listen, but Michael is a super fan. And he, like, Anakin Skywalker is he loves Anakin Skywalker. And I mentioned it once before during the pandemic, I probably made a horrible parenting move, but Empire Strikes Back was at the theater. So all of us put our masks on and went to the movie theater on a Tuesday night and watched Empire Strikes Back because I'm like, I am never going to get this again, probably. So I am going to take my opportunity. And Michael left, and now he's like, he finally put it together that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader. Like, he never really put it together before. And for him, he's like, we left, and it was like a week later, we were going to school, and he was like, Daddy, he had like a few days where he was making some rough choices, right? And he's like, Daddy, I think I was making bad choices, and I'm going to just start taking my mask off, my helmet off. And I'm like, what do you mean, your helmet off? He's like, well, I think I was like pretending I had a helmet on, and I was like Darth Vader. And when Darth Vader was bad, he wore a helmet, but he took it off, and so he was good again and saved his son. And he was good when he didn't wear a helmet because he was just himself. I was like, oh my effing God. You were 6 years old and you're putting all this together. And that, to me, is how George Lucas writes. Like, we mature past that. But he got all of it. And he got all of it that people still argue about. And this is me, and he's my son. But I was like, oh my God, you put it all, like, you just put it all together. So on one hand, I want to say, like, is George's, like, character writing the greatest? No. But then I have a 6-year-old telling me all of these really deep, complex things in the way a 6-year-old can. And I'm like, nope, it's all there.
Yeah, Star Wars is for kids. Like, we have to remember that we are not the target demographic of those movies. No matter what anybody tries to tell you.
Yep. Well, I don't know. I still think, I love that and I agree, but I also think it's for the children in all of us. And as you get older, it starts to slip away. And Star Wars is that thing that I think can bring us back there. And one of my greatest joys of being a father, and I've always been like a youthful at spirit person anyways, but being able to see the world through my kids' eyes is incredible. It's just like, it's this gift that I've heard people say before. You hear parents say that all the time, but until you actually get it, it's just this thing of like, I don't ever want to lose this again. And learning how to see things that way again, just on their base, simple form. It's right there. And it's pretty incredible. I feel very grateful for that with my kids. And that's like what Luke has. Luke has that childhood wonder where Leia doesn't.
That was a very good segue.
Yeah, like that?
I was just thinking the same. I was like, oh, we are so far in the weeds. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what I've done. I'm so sorry, Bryan. You'll never have me back.
But yeah, Leia doesn't have that, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not that she's not. Leia's not a cold person.
She could be. That's a little bit of her personality, and her character arc in the original trilogy is starting to soften up a little bit.
Perfect. You're reading my mind. So, the original trilogy. Where do we start with Leia? Who is Leia in A New Hope?
So, when we meet Leia, and I'm going to talk about both in terms of the films themselves and their kind of cultural zeitgeist, and then as the characters themselves. Because Leia really is the foundation for a new kind of heroine and genre. Because we would never have got a Ellen Ripley or a Sarah Connor if not for Carrie Fisher's Leia. Because even though... And I think it is in the script. I think George wanted to make a kind of saucy princess. I think casting was a huge part of that because of just who Carrie was as a person. Mm-hmm. So the first time that we see her, we know that she is not like a gentle Disney princess, even though she looks beautiful. She's in her cute little shift with her Heidi buns. But then she comes off and immediately starts smarting off to the 7-foot-tall black masked villain. Like it's no big deal. And that really sets the tone for that character, is that it's not necessarily that she's fearless, but she knows how to contain her emotions because she's been taught that from a child.
Yep.
So while she loses an entire planet during that, she loses everyone that she knows from that. She loses both of her adopted parents, so her actual parents. And she still manages to keep it together enough that she can lead people to the destruction of the second Death Star. Where Luke is having a hard time because the nice man who is the first person to really be nice to him in a while, he knew him for maybe, 2 weeks, and then he's gone, and Luke basically needs to have a sit-down, which is a normal human reaction. Don't get me wrong. It is okay to mourn people. That's just the difference between those twins. Luke loses one person. Well, he does lose Owen and Beru. He doesn't really react to that, but that's a whole other thing.
I think Obi-Wan was the first person to see him as something more than he could be, whereas Beru and Owen kept him down out of fear and protection. I think it came from a good place, but Luke had never been seen before, and I think Obi-Wan was the first person who actually saw him. You know, if you look at the deleted scenes when he's with his friend Wendy and Biggs and all that, they just kind of rag on him all the time. He's kind of like, he's their friend, but he's, the nerdy one that kind of gets picked on, and, he's not respected even amongst his friends exactly the same way until Obi-Wan comes on. It's like, no, you're really important, and I see it in you, and I have this for you. And I think I can see that as a father to the 3 kids that I have, who all came from families and parents before. But one of them in particular had never been seen before he came here. And I can see when they don't miss where they spent more time with us very quickly, which is interesting. But the thing that you said, too, about Leia that I love, about the 7-foot man in a black helmet, like, what an important message for kids. He is the bully, and Darth Vader in that moment is scary AF.
Oh, yeah.
And here's this tiny little person who just stands right up to him. And what does any kid need to learn? If you stand up and look a bully in the face, they're not going to do anything to you. They're so used to using their size and their demeanor to push people around. And when someone comes back at them and challenges themselves, they don't even know what to do. In my experience, 9 times out of 10, they actually show you more respect. They're like, oh, I see you. And I think there's a part of Darth Vader that respected her, too. When Tarkin's around, he's like, oh, yeah, no. She put up with some of those interrogation things pretty remarkably.
Yeah. Let's not forget that we put Leia through an entire torture that was completely off screen and we've never necessarily dove into. And she didn't give away anything. This is just a 19-year-old girl who's a junior senator from Alderaan, but she took it like anybody could ever imagine to.
Yep, which is incredible. Yeah, I mean, honestly. And then, I mean, Han Solo is the damsel in distress in the original trilogy. That's the dude. I mean, he really is. He's the one who's always getting himself in jams, and everybody else around him's got to pick up the. He's the one who breaks the stick. Oh, well, now the biker scouts know we're here. Oh, well, you got captured. Now I got to go rescue you. Like, it's him, which is cool. And he's like the broiest of them all. It's funny. So, okay, so that's A New Hope. Where do we find her in Empire?
So Empire is my favorite development for Leia as a character until we get to The Last Jedi. Not that the in-between doesn't have fantastic story beats, but as far as a jump forward in that character's development, we get to see Leia the commander. And we see tiny 5'0" Leia standing on Echo Base and giving orders to everyone there, and it's not a problem. And that's one of the great things about Star Wars is that the gender issue with Leia leading all of these men is never addressed. It's never played one way or the other. Everyone just takes orders, and it's never once a problem. No one ever on screen has ever said anything about the tiny princess from Alderaan telling them to go hop into a snowspeeder. They just do what they're told. And she's very good at commanding an entire group of people. And that's another thing that's great about her character is we see her at her what she's most comfortable with, which is in a leadership position, which is thinking about the best thing that we can do next in order to help the most people possible. And the thing that frustrates her is just that interpersonal relationship with that little, like, scruffy nerf herder on his RV with his dog. Like, that dude just frustrates her to no end. Because she can read everyone else because she knows that, hey, if we need to get from here to here because we have 600 people that we need to get fed and clothed, we need to move to this location, we need to have these people doing this. And then with Han, he makes no sense to her.
Yep. 100%. That's the challenge. And that's what she met her match in a very different way, but she met her match finally in Han.
And
100%.
That hallway scene will never be outdone in just fiction as a whole, as far as the chemistry between two characters.
So good. Until we found out that person who walked between was a beautiful gay boy just in love with the Tauntaun herder.
Oh, we could have a whole episode about that story. I love it so much. I've never been happier.
In this. Oh, it was so good. I was like, oh my God, this is
the sweetest story. I know why people go to fanfic now, so they can get that experience.
100%. I'm like, I know these tunnels. I know these walls. I'm like, this dude's been through a dark room or two in this time. He knows what's up.
Leave that poor kid alone. So he knows nothing. That is an innocent, sweet little potato. Now the Tauntaun Wrangler, on the other hand.
Yes. Yeah, okay. She does. What do you think? I'm interested in what your thoughts of Leia and Lando are in this, because Lando's another swindler. He's another smuggler. You know, Leia by that point, Leia's like, fine, you're my boyfriend. I kissed you. We were working on some stuff together until that stupid goldenrod came in and screwed up my jam. I had Janet playing in the background, and we were getting ready. And then you messed it up. So she is in at that point for me, right? And now she meets this other dude who is like Han, but way cooler, way more charismatic, yet slimier at the same time.
Oh, I think that she reacts to him in the way that she's been trained as a diplomat. I don't think that there's the slightest spark between Lando and Leia. He's charming as all get out, don't get me wrong. Lando could charm the pants out of everyone in Cloud City, and probably has at least twice. Like, there's a reason Lobot follows him around like a puppy. Like, he knows what he's doing. But she likes Han because the fact that he doesn't really know what he's doing. But Han's not exactly the suavest person. He thinks he is, and that's what makes him so charming. He's not that great at it.
Nope.
So you get to Lando, and Lando is every lobbyist that she's ever met as a junior senator. He's flashy, he's charming, he gives her beautiful clothes, and she plays it up because she likes Han's reaction to it. And I think that's about as far as it goes. Empire is really getting to see Leia experience a romance in a way that there's nothing else that she can be doing at that time. When she's stuck on the Millennium Falcon, for the mysterious however long they're on the Millennium Falcon in Empire. Might have been a day, might have been 2 months, who knows?
I've always imagined like 3-4 weeks.
See, that's what I think too. I think we've got a good period of time. It must be somewhat concurrent with Luke's training on Dagobah, which doesn't seem to be very long. But I think because she's stuck there and there's not anything else she can do but just be stuck in the car with this guy and his dog, that she kind of starts to soften up to him. And maybe it's not because she thinks that this is a long-term goal. Maybe she wants to have her first spring fling. Like, she's on vacation, and there's this nice guy who's hanging around, and, like, he's not nice, but he's not unattractive. And he definitely wants to give her attention. And it's kind of fun because he doesn't respond like everyone that she's ever known. He doesn't know what the best thing to say is. So if you get a compliment out of Han, it's genuine. Because he thinks he's a flatterer. He's not good at it. Clearly, he's never talked his way out of most situations, as we see with him as a character. So I think that their relationship really starts to grow in that period of time. And it makes it realistic. I don't think if we had that extended period with the Millennium Falcon, then her really softening up and the kiss on Cloud City, that wouldn't really make sense.
Yeah, 100%. It's the bad boy with the Camaro, and they just went out to Lookout Mountain, and she wasn't going to do it, but now she's going to kiss him because he's got a Camaro, and he's kind of a bad guy, but as Qi'ra said, he's not a bad guy. Leia sees that too. She knows he's good.
She was digging around in the center console and found his best of ABBA compilation. She's like, wait a second. Did you do drama in school growing up? He's like, no. I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, okay. I'm going to give you that. Took me a minute to think of ABBA and Han, but I'm going to give you that. So, all right. Now we're in Jedi. My favorite Leia scene of all is in this movie.
Ooh, talk about that now. No, go ahead and do yours. I know what it is, but I'd love to hear you talk about it.
Like, I've said it probably 80,000 times on this show, but I love that moment between Leia and Wicket. And here she is. We get a lot of Leia from A New Hope. She just bursts on in there in her little Bausch disguise with Han. She's throwing a grenade around. She probably had that conversation with Chewie. She's like, I might actually have to do this, just so you know. Like, we might actually both go down right now. Chewie would have been on board with that too. And they're like, okay, this is what we might have to do. And then we get her as the Hutt Slayer, which a more like amazing thank you, Claudia Gray, because that was amazing. But that's very impulsive too. You know, she's always reading everything. She's like, okay, here's my opportunity. Boom, I'm going to take it. Right. But everything's very impulsive. She gets a minute and she's we're on with Mon Mothma. We're doing our thing. She's back in her political military arena. And she's like, all right, no, I'm going to go hang out with my boyfriend. So that's what I'll do because Mon Mothma's here now. She's got this thing. I'm going to go hang out with my boyfriend, which before Empire, she would not have done that.
Oh, no.
But Leia is starting to soften. She's also learned from Luke, who Luke is now like really, as we were saying, so good with interpersonal skills. Like Luke is the one that formed that found family. He is the love, the glue. We call our middle son the cream. We call him cream all the time, pickles and cream. And he came in and really glued our other two children together. So he was the last one in, but the middle child. But he glued them together, so we just call him cream. And Luke is the cream. Luke is the cream of that group. And he holds them together. But Leia's also learned that the power in like, oh my God, I lost my entire family. I lost my entire way of life. And now these are here for me now. And I'm going to give them everything. And she learned a lot, I think, from that relationship that she didn't have before. And maybe it's part of because she was raised with all that privilege and all that money and all those things that she in a way took it for granted that she had it. And then when it's taken from her, she sees these two other people who never had it. And she's learning from that, I think. And so we get another brash Leia moment. She hops on her speeder bike, takes them all out, gets knocked off, right? And here we get a little kid coming up to poke her. And what's going on? Does he know what she is? Does he not know what she is? You know, Ewoks, I'm sure most humans all look the same. You know, like they all look the same to him. So she's just part of these bad people. But I'm a kid, so I trust my gut. And there's something different about you. So I'm going to sit here for a minute and check you out, right? Make sure you're all right. And then we get my favorite Leia moment of all time. And she reaches into her little pouch and she gives him a little cracker. And it was just this single, small human act of kindness. It is the smallest gesture we've seen in any of the Star Wars movies ever. And it is what wins the war. Because without the Ewoks, they would have lost and nothing would have happened.
Oh, absolutely.
And if Leia hadn't grown, she would have just said, "You're just some kid, get out of my way." You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And she would have brushed him aside because she was going to have to do it herself. But she's like, no, I have a compassion that I didn't have before. And that's what actually won. Her brashness may have blown up the first Death Star, but it didn't knock him out. Mm-hmm. And until she learned the human kindness, and without the individuals, if you're so busy looking at the whole, you're not going to save the whole. You have to care about the ones around you first, and that ripple effect. And I believe that is what so much of Star Wars is about. Take care of those around you, and that ripple effect will take care of everybody. Mm-hmm. If you look too big, you're going to fail. You can't. That's why the Jedi failed. They looked too big, and they didn't look what was right in front of them. Ahsoka talks about that all the time. You know, like that is her, no, you help who's in front of you. She is selfless. She doesn't keep anyone around her. But she finds herself in situations, and I just think it's so amazing. But that Leia moment is just, it's everything to me. And the older I get, the more I love that moment. And I think it's so incredibly powerful.
It's such a definitive moment of her character arc, because out of the three mains of the original trilogy, Leia could almost be described as a static character and not a dynamic character. Because she comes in strong, she has a good moral center, she's doing the best for everyone, and then she ends the trilogy that way as well, where Luke and Han both have drastic character change. But just like you said, when Leia is in full Leia mode, when she's taking care of as many people as she possibly can, first time she runs into Chewie, she says, "Get this walking carpet out of my way," and then by the time Return of the Jedi shows up, tiny walking carpet shows up, and she has time for it. But part of that, I think, has to do with the fact that as a character, right, she's raised her entire life knowing that she has to take on this mantle of Queen of Alderaan and how much responsibility she will have, and everything in her life, every day-to-day chore is built to prepare her for that. And then she loses her home. And then as the movies progress, she's realizing that she's also, well, she's lost that responsibility. She's also lost that burden. So she gets to start having more human interactions. So by the time we see her in Return of the Jedi, Mon Mothma is calling all of the shots, and she's just taking it in stride. She's a general at this point, by Return of the Jedi, but she's taking orders, and she's going right along with every one of her troops, and she's not trying to pull all the strings, because she doesn't have to. She's built up a group of people that she can trust, and she doesn't have to be responsible for everybody. She just has to be responsible for her core group of people. So it's really allowed her to have a more human interaction and really start building a life for herself that she never thought she was going to have. She was going to have to be a queen, and now she can be a 27-year-old girl who's fallen in love with a space jockey, and who knows what'll happen if they can get through this war.
That's true. That's really, yeah, 100. That's great, actually. That's, yeah, 100%. The burden of an expectation of what you have to become. Very similar to her father. Mm-hmm. He felt of that burden and that expectation too. Not only as a Jedi, but then imagine the weight of, you're the chosen one. You're going to bring balance to this entire screwed up galaxy. It's all sitting on you. And by the way, we're not going to give you a hug ever either. So if you are feeling overwhelmed by it, well, go figure it out. Go levitate a rock. And he fell under that pressure. Because again, the one person that saw him as him, he killed out of being angry. Horrible. That, you know. So now we're in the sequel trilogy. And as Ben and I were talking a little bit ahead of time, I don't know the sequel trilogy like the back of my hand like I do the other two. I love them. But I think you and I are both in kind of agreement. She was not used great in The Force Awakens.
No, not at all.
Again, we mentioned it once before. Thank God for Bloodline. Because, like, that was everything. And why none of that was in there is beyond me. But, you know, I just don't see Leia when I watch The Force Awakens.
There's just little moments where suddenly it's Leia. But it's very brief for me. I know part of it, just from a practical standpoint, I know that Qi'ra was extraordinarily nervous to be returning for the role. There was a lot of pressure put on her by Disney and Lucasfilm themselves. So you need to be this certain weight, you need to look this way in order to come back for this role. And also, she hadn't acted in an extended period of time. And how do you come back to Star Wars, of all things? So this is the thing that you are known for, that is been going on for, I guess, what was it, 35 years at the time?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then you come back to it, and, you know, JJ has a strength. I'm not going to trash talk JJ. I do think he is a talented director and a storyteller. Endings has never necessarily been his forte, and that's okay. I don't think that he took the time that he could have with Leia because he had this huge thing that he was trying to take care of. And Force Awakens was done at a breakneck speed. They had years to try to get ready for it, but still there was stuff being changed on the day just to try to make this thing work. Because Force Awakens is the little Millennium Falcon that could of a movie. It is a movie that had so much anticipation laden on it. Because I know that Bryan can speak with this. We thought that it was over with the prequels, right? And we had come to terms that it was done. And then we find out that there's more. And regardless of how you feel about the prequels, a lot of us, our first gut reaction was, oh, no, we don't need more. Can we not? Because it might be worse. I don't know if it's going to be better, but it could be worse. So Force Awakens had to take us all by the hand, sit us down, and be very, very gentle with us.
Yep.
So unfortunately, in all of that shuffle, I think we did lose a lot of Leia. We don't get to... She gets very, very little screen time, and what very little screen time she gets is mostly expository. Like, that's definitely Han's movie, and Harrison is fantastic in it.
Yep.
I just really wish that there had been a couple minutes that could have been spared for more conversation between her and Harrison. Obviously, at the time, we didn't know that that would never be able to be recorded later as a flashback or anything, but what an opportunity that could have been.
Yep. Yeah, that movie's so crazy and just all the things that it could have been. You know, like, we have what we have, and I really like it. I like The Force Awakens. I love Rey, Kylo, and Finn so much, and I think that movie did this impossible thing of having you really care about Rey and Finn.
Oh yeah.
That I didn't even miss Luke. I'm like, I didn't even think about any of them. Like, the first time I'm like, oh my God, I love these characters. This is so good. Wait a second. We haven't seen anyone yet. Like, talk about an accomplishment.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Force Awakens it juggles that movie so well. Because exactly like you said, we went in, where's Luke? Where's Leia? Where's Han? Where's Chewie? Where's R2? We want to see all of our friends. And our friends are there, but they're sprinkled. And I think it was done very, very artistically to put a lot of growth into these new characters that we were 100% on. I loved every one of those characters leaving that movie. That was one of the most exhilarating Star Wars films I've ever experienced in theaters. Because it just felt like going home is the only way that I can really describe it. It didn't have to push the envelope too far. It just had to make us feel secure and happy and remind us what Star Wars used to feel like when we were 8 years old. And it does that. It is a nostalgia bomb. For better and for worse. It is just there to feed us serotonin directly into our frontal lobe, and I wanted it so badly.
And still, makes you feel great. Every time that movie's on, I'm on cloud nine. I'm warm and fuzzy. It's literally like watching A New Hope in Return of the Jedi. Warm and fuzzy. So, but now we're going to go into The Last Jedi, and that is Leia.
Oh,
that is my princess. That is the royalty. She is so good in this movie.
She's fantastic. Everything is done so well in this. I don't think there's a thing that I could have changed or even asked for them to have changed for it to have been better. It gave me everything that I never knew that I needed from that character. It's such a good portrayal. It's a very dedicated choice by Ryan to spend as much time as he did with Carrie, because a lot of that comes from Carrie. Is the more you lean into her, the more Leia that you get, because no one knows that character better than she did.
Well, so, George says it. I mean, she is Leia, and Leia is her. It's that simple. And for sure.
We get to see her really portray the kind of internal struggle that's going on with Leia. Because just to circle back, because obviously there's not much to talk about in Force Awakens, but we do know textually, obviously, that her son has turned to the dark side and how that's weighing on her, and her relationship with Han fell apart, because when that happened, when Ben turned to the dark side, they both went back to what they knew. Han had to just go and just race some speeders and just get on the smuggling operations. Like, I don't even know what he was doing. God love the man. And Leia went back to what she knew, which is, if I can't take care of one person, I can take care of everybody. So she leaned into it, and at the end of the day, she helped save the galaxy. It's not that she made the wrong choice, but she's definitely leaning on what comes most comfortable to her as a person.
Yep.
And you start to see, especially in Last Jedi, how, whether or not it's intentional, I don't know that she knows that it's going on, but you start to see her foster those feelings that she can no longer give to Ben to Poe. So she starts to raise him herself. And Last Jedi, their relationship is so important. And some people have some frustrations with that. I know some people didn't like the idea of Poe bucking up against a woman in charge, which makes sense. He's being an asshole in this movie, but that's his asshole arc. He needs to go through that so that his mom can come in and slap him and tell him that he needs to start thinking about the whole, and he needs to get his head out of his cockpit and not trying to go out and be the hero, which is the same thing she always had with Luke and Han, which is, I want to go out and slashy shoot everything. But we have to take care of the larger numbers. And we get to see that version of her character that is so incredibly strong. And for the first time, we get to start to see her weak spots, which is she's got a lot of trauma and loss in her life. Every time we've met her, she's losing something. And she finally gets to a point where she starts to wonder if she can keep doing it. And at the same time, never quite gives up hope. She is fought all the way back into a literal corner on Crate, where it's her and a handful of people, and she does not know what to do. And then we get my favorite moment in Leia's story arc, period. It's also my favorite Luke moment, is when he comes to visit her via force projection. And that interaction is such a major part of both of those characters, because we see exactly how Leia responds to seeing her brother that's been gone this whole time. Because she's still mourning her son. She hasn't had a chance to process that, and she can't do it with her husband, who has just been killed by the son that she also can't mourn. And then who knows where her brother is, because he won't pick up his cell phone, and then suddenly he shows up. And because she's Leia, she does the first thing that she does the second that we see them together is she cracks a joke. And that is the perfect version of that character.
Yep. I think, I have always been on Team Obi-Wan I don't think he lied to Luke. I think Anakin Skywalker died. And I think he was honest. And I think that may not have been the way that Luke wanted to hear it, but that's the only way Obi-Wan can handle the loss of his brother. And it wasn't to mislead him. It wasn't to do it. I just think that's how Obi-Wan looks at it. And I think it's really a beautiful way to look at it, actually. And I feel a lot of that in Leia in this. Leia and Han lost their son. He died. He died. And I can't even fathom what that would do. I mean, I have yet to ever meet a couple who are as bonded and united as my husband and I are. Like, we are the same person, and he is my person. And I don't even know what that would be like if we lost someone. Like, I don't know. I don't think I could be myself anymore, and I think about Tom. I just don't know who I would be without my 4 boys in my life anymore. And we talked earlier in this about Leia finally understanding and coming to terms with people that close to her. And she finally did it. And then what happens? She lost her son. She made choices that led him down that path. And her attachment is what lost him. And her idea of wanting more for him, and the burden that she probably put on him to be a Jedi, and the same burden that she was to be a princess. And it's all sitting there in that moment when he's cruising down on her and they share that force bond, you see it all right there on her face. You see all of it. And it is gut-wrenching. It is those 2 actors in that moment. Not honestly, you felt it in both of them. Like, it was gut wrenching. It is so hard to watch that scene. And then we see her on Crate, and there's that beautiful shot with the cloak, and she's just looking out into the vastness of nothing, knowing this is it for her. I think she knows she's going. I don't think she believes they're going to make it out.
But she doesn't have anything else to pull. She's got the entirety of the First Order on her. She has nothing to fight back on. And for the first time, she's realized that I don't know what the next step is to help these people. And
I think she knows she can't do it. I think she's about to look at the ghost of her son. I mean, she says it to Luke when he comes, that scene that you're talking about, which is so beautiful. And then how poetic life is, that's their last. Like, it's just, as tragic as that was, like, that is just, that was our gift. that we got to say goodbye to the character at the same time her brother did. And it's really, life can be beautiful sometimes in the tragedy. And I find that a very comforting moment, as sad as it is. But Luke gets it. She's like, Luke, I know my son is gone. And he's there. He's only there for her. He is not there to face down the entire First Order with a laser sword. He is not there for Rey. He is not there for Ben. He's not there for anyone but Leia. Because he knows she can't do it. She was just going to sit in there. She says to all the people, what are you following me for? Follow him. And yes, it's a very funny Leia joke. But she's like, I have nothing to give you here because I will lead you to death because I'm not going to attack my son. I lost him once and I'm not going to kill his ghost. Not going to do it. So you need to follow this guy because I am still Leia and I know that what needs to be done, but I cannot be the one to pull the trigger. So I will let Poe do it or I'll let you people do it, but I will not do it. And if you follow me, you're all dead. And I think it's a really beautiful moment of just a parent who will love their child no matter what they do. No matter what they do, they will love them. And what a great Skywalker message, like Luke feels that way about his father. I don't care what you did. I am your son and I love you, Dad. And I think there's a layer of Padme, and as wonderful as Padme is, she couldn't give Anakin that because I don't think she knew how to either. She was too much like Leia, but never was given the opportunity to be a parent and learn how to have someone that close. She chose Anakin for a reason. She chose Anakin because she knew he couldn't get that close to her either. So it was going to be this thing that she understood. And so their relationship was probably great for her and for him because those were two people in the galaxy that understood duty coming before love. And wouldn't judge one another for it. And Anakin finally had someone who looked at him as Anakin. Maybe for the first time ever. Mm-hmm. And that's what saved his son. And saved everything, and is the Skywalker loving people. And then that's what they gave Rey. And when she takes that name for those things too, they saw her for her. Not anything that came beforehand. I look at the scavenger as a metaphor for like a foster kid. I know how society views foster kids sometimes, especially when they're older like her. I know what's said, and I know the judgment that is put on a bunch of kids that don't deserve to have those critiques put on them. But I know it's there, and I've always viewed it that way, as she's just this dirty little foster kid. No one's going to want her. She's going to age out of the system at some point. But Luke saw her, and he makes a joke too, but he sees her, and then Leia really sees her. And that's where we get in The Rise of Skywalker. And I do think that film was very successful at giving them a really good bond. In the little bit of time that they had together, Daisy did it. I mean, Daisy obviously did it. She gave them a really unique bond. We had that too at the end of The Last Jedi. I actually don't want to forget that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic moment that they get to share.
Yep.
And in The Force Awakens as well, those two women just had a really good chemistry on screen. And I know a lot of that is that Carrie did kind of take Daisy under her wing in a lot of ways because she's the only girl in the all-boy romp again. So anytime that they're on screen, you really do feel that there's a connection there. Enough so that, some of us were wondering if she was some kind of a lost Solo just because of the way that both Han and Leia react to her. So when we get to see her again in Rise of Skywalker, there's a lot on Daisy's shoulders to carry a story beat that, unfortunately, we don't have Carrie there to help push. We can only use what we have. The novelization for Rise of Skywalker is fantastic, and that we actually really get to build up some more of that mentorship that Leia is able to provide.
So are you suggesting I go there because I've never been brave enough to crack open that book?
So here's the thing. If you are like me, and we know that you kind of are, so Rise of Skywalker is not for us, right? So a novelization is not going to make us necessarily feel different about the movie. However, Ray Carson does a really good job of finding the moments that do speak to us. And I can say that, at least for myself personally, and really embellishing on those without going crazy. Because novelization is a very hard thing to do. because you really shouldn't be building too much more than what's on screen. In her case, though, I do believe that they gave her a little bit of grace with Leia. So there's more about Leia's training with Luke. There's more about Leia's training of Rey. There's some good stuff in there.
I'll have to check it out. Phantom Menace is another one. That's a great novelization.
See, that one I've never done. I need to do that. Is that Terry Brooks? Did he do the novelization?
I think so. It's been a long time, but yeah, I think so. There's some good Anakin stuff in Tuscans that makes it more heartbreaking when Attack of the Clones comes. Good stuff. It's really, 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 really good stuff. So, I want to ask you a question that I brought up with Em and Mark after we were recording our special editions thing. Because I don't like this about myself, but it happened. And if I'm anything on this podcast, I'm honest. I had a hard time letting Leia be one of my favorite characters for a really long time because she was a female character. Mm-hmm. And if I were straight, it probably wouldn't have ever been a thing. But as a queer guy, especially someone like, we're both hobbits, there's a lot of pressure put on top of that too. Like, I'm a little skinny dude for a very long time and short and all those things. And being a gay guy on top of it, especially coming out in the 90s of you can't be a man and be gay. You are somehow less than. Mm-hmm. And I had a hard time being able to say that I liked Leia because it would somehow make me less masculine, which is complete BS. It's just BS, garbage. But there's so much pressure with masculinity just being men in general anyways. There's a lot of, and it's all toxic, and I think as a society, I feel like we're getting better, but this was, 30 years ago.
And it's also a huge holdout in the queer community.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's not fair, and it sucks. It's really, really, really horrible. Mm-hmm. But I think about how much I didn't get from her younger because I wouldn't let myself go there. Mm-hmm. And I'm upset. And so has she always been that for you?
So it kind of depends. So I've been on board with Star Wars since I was about 7. I want to say is when I saw New Hope the first time. Shout out to TBS Superstation. Love you guys. I, as a little kid, was really drawn to 3PO. I've always had a real draw towards, and this does come up in psychology, so here we go. So, if it's a synthetic character, if it's a robot, if they're somehow less than human, but they're trying to be more human-like, I really related to that as a kid. I didn't understand why, but as a young queer kid, knowing that you're not like everyone else, and you're just trying to keep up, that makes sense for you at the time. So I was hardcore all about a droid. Any kind of anthropomorphic character, that's who I really related to. As I got older, at some point turned strongly to Leia because I was starting to try to come to terms with what made me feel powerful as a kid. And then especially into adulthood, that bond really linked correctly. Because I've always had a very complicated relationship with the concept of masculinity. Because it is a weird, it is a very Western American kind of ideal thing. As a queer kid, especially if you grew up queer and closeted and highly religious, there is this sort of act and the posture that you have to constantly be watching. And it's constantly checked up on by everyone around you. Whether it's intentional. So, for example, with parents, I had them constantly trying to butch me up any way that they could. Yep. And then just the way that we interact with other men societally, there is a subconscious need to constantly check. So even if for example, I work in the public, right? So I know that I see a lot of people who come in with their kids or their buddies. And so when you have a bunch of straight men, there's just little comments and jokes that are constantly made. And it's not made out of maliciousness. There's no hatred behind it, what they're doing, but they're constantly checking each other with making sure that you're playing man correctly. So they're like, hey, why don't you buy said pink thing over here? And haha, isn't that funny? But the reason it's funny is because, you can't look at it because you got to keep playing man. And so it's this constant, stringent thing that we have forced on us. And then coming out, you think that you've got away from that. Or at least that was my initial thought, right? I came from very rural areas. I didn't know queer people before I came out. First person I ever met who was a queer person was the person that I started dating. First gay person I ever met. So you start thinking, okay, cool. So now I can be whoever I want to be. And unfortunately, while that is the case, that wasn't the society that I fell into. So immediately you go into how to be a good gay man. And then just to throw it out there, I identify as queer because some people would call it pansexual. I'm not specifically attracted to one gender over the other. While like male relationships tend to be my more primary attraction. So that becomes a complicated thing, right? So it's the thing of like, you have to be the good gay. So you have to do what the gay people do, which is you get this haircut, you wear these clothes. This is the music you listen to now. Now you go to these bars all the time. Why? I don't know. It's Tuesday at 3 p.m., but that is the only place where you can go and be gay. But while you're there, we're going to watch you because there's certain things that you need to do. And while we won't tell you that it's because you're not a man, we'll tell you that it makes you less attractive. And we're not going to really delve into why that is. Like, you can be flamboyant, but you need to be in your 40s and have money at that point. So until then, you need to be trade, young man.
Yep.
So, and that never worked. Like, I definitely shoved myself into some boxes that I shouldn't have, thinking like, okay, cool, let's try. This is how you do gay. Didn't make me any happier than being closeted. So, as someone who's always fallen back to my nerd interests, and with Star Wars, Leia was someone that I really bonded with as a character, because at no point is she not herself. So she's young, she's pretty, she's very feminine, and yet that doesn't decrease from her power. There's never any... She doesn't have to Sarah Connor up, right? Like, we don't see Leia doing her chin-ups in order to show how powerful she is at any point. She can own that with its own unique energy that is neither feminine nor masculine. Soft. She has that ability to do both. And I just really relate to that. Even to this day, that is a character that I see a lot of myself in, or what I aspire to be, especially with General Leia. That is the character that I'm just absolutely in love with. I love that version of her life in The Last Jedi. I feel the same way about Luke in The Last Jedi, too. The portrayal of the Skywalker twins in that movie mean a lot to me, because there's two different aspects of my personality that I was definitely going through at the time that film released. So it spoke to me very, very heavily. But yeah, Leia is, it's hard to describe. And it's the same way that I know that you feel in some aspects with Din, right? Is when you bond to a character, there's no way to really describe it. And we all do it no matter what you're into. If you're not a huge Star Wars fan, whatever you consume, whatever your thing is, that's why
Captain America or it's Thor or whoever you need it to be.
Or that's 100%. Why people say which lady they are in Sex and the City, or which Golden Girl you are. Like, there's that need to find yourself in the stories that you tell yourself. So we find that aspect in whatever shape it comes in.
Yep. Yeah, like I really wish that I didn't have that. And it's interesting, it's a difficult subject, I think, to talk about. So thank you for sharing, because it's like, it can be very misogynistic. I don't think it is. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just not understanding. But with gay men and queer men, it's not that. Maybe it is in the idea of the larger sense of society somehow thinking women are less than, which I think is complete BS. And I've never subscribed to that. And a lot of gay men don't feel that way. We idolize our women, but we don't want to be considered a woman just because we want to sleep with other men. And it has nothing to do with not wanting to be. That's not what it was ever about. And maybe that's where, like, we're dealing with misogyny in a way of society putting a misogyny on us because we can't be you. You cannot be a man and be with another man. You have to be less. And so maybe in that way, but I think for us, I don't want to look to Leia because I can't, because I think women are somehow less than. But I think, especially like when I was coming out, it was dangerous. Like, that was how we were outed. If your wrists are too loose, or if you hold on to your S's too long, if you don't stand up, if your chest isn't puffed out enough, like, all of this stuff is stupid. But we had to learn it in order to survive, and sometimes literally survive. And so then it just becomes a part of who you are, because it's just been beaten into you. And sometimes, I've gotten so much more. I have always been this. very out, very loud gay person. I have never, ever, ever ran away from it. And I'm fortunate to still be here because some people that, not everyone, I was, ran away to cities when I came out. And not everyone has that opportunity, and I get that. But at the same time, I felt more toxic garbage from the gay community itself than I ever did anywhere else. Because I remember going to my first gay bar, and I can't remember if we talked about this on the stream or not, but like I was told who I was, like within 5 minutes of being there. And I was a very, very naive kid. I didn't know anything. I was ballsy, and I moved to a whole nother state 2 weeks after high school all on my own. Like I was ballsy when I look back now. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty ballsy move. But it's great choice when we're talking about misogyny and using that. But anyway,
it's so entrenched that it's in the language.
Yeah.
Even.
But I was like, oh, well, you have to be a bottom. You're this, you're a twink, and these are your people over there, and you're a bottom, and which I don't even think I knew what that was when I was like, and then for so long, even like that stuff, I worked so against that because I'm like, I finally came out. I finally ran away and came out, and I'm out and proud. Now I'm here in my safe space in my bar where at least right now in 1997 is really the only place I can actually hold another dude's hand or kiss another dude. This is the only place I can actually do that. And I still have to pretend to be something that I'm not. Are you kidding me? And that's our own inner homophobia. And I hope it's getting better. But for so long that defined so much of who I was. And right down to something as stupid as not allowing myself to love this character that I could have garnered so much strength from and so much stuff that I probably needed as a young queer kid. Like you were saying, like to be myself in the face of anything. It was so weird. I had an easier time facing homophobia from the outside world than I ever had to face it within the bar. That's what terrified me. Those are the people I couldn't stand up to, which I could have learned from Leia to have just been able to stand up to them too. Like, no. I fought really hard to get into a box. I'm not going to get in one just because it's painted pink. I love the pink box. I might stand on it and I might dive in from it from time to time, but I don't need you to take me in it. And I want to be able to get out. And it was something that was totally off script and off thing, but we were talking about it the other day, and it's been sitting on my mind a lot since then, actually. Like, what does that mean? Like, what stuff is going on there? And I'm like, do straight people have to do this much thinking about themselves? Like, I wonder. I wonder if your straight dude sits there and ponders so much of every movement they make, every step they made 20 years ago. Like, or is that just me?
I think if you're a straight white dude, then you get it pretty easy in a lot of ways without having to constantly be concerned about how society views you.
Yeah.
But everyone else, I think we're all falling in this stuff. We have to deal with what we think of ourselves, with what society thinks of ourselves, with what we think we need to do to be accepted by society that doesn't like us in the first place. So why do we feel like we have to do this? And then we fall into our in-groups, and we find out that a lot of that is, unfortunately, we're taking on the language of the oppressors and oppressing ourselves. And it may come from a place that wasn't intended to be toxic, right? So let's say that it's the 60s. Let's go back further than any of the best would have been there. So when you would have had situations like Stonewall, like what were those little bars that were mostly run by the mafia? And this is your one place where you can be out. But you have to go back tomorrow and not be seen. You can't draw people here. So that kind of policing comes from a place of concern and from safety. So it's the thing of like, if you're going to go out, like you cannot wear that because we can't have everyone knowing that you're coming to the ferry bar. Like,
oh my God,
we've got to get the scarf off. And so that kind of stuff, that cultural trauma, that does carry over. So while that didn't happen to us specifically, I know that we've both had run-ins with it. Like, we are smaller town people who moved to larger towns, but I was still in the Midwest the whole time. Like, I've had bricks thrown at me. I've had all that. I know what that was like because I came out in somewhere in the 2000s-ish, somewhere in there, where things were definitely better than they were for Bryan and For Bryan, they were definitely better than they were for our forefathers and mothers in the queer community. But it doesn't make it easy. So there's a lot of stuff that we put on ourselves with expectations, and we just want to fit in because you spend your whole life not feeling like you found your people. And then if you're fed the narrative that once you find your place, everything will be okay, it becomes the myth of the happily ever after to you. And the thing is, there is no happily ever after because the story doesn't stop until you're not there anymore. So once you find the place, you think everything is supposed to be perfect. And then when it isn't, that's a shock. And it's so heart-wrenching. And you get in this cognitive dissonance of trying to make excuses for things that are just not excusable. And there's a lot of stuff of that in the queer community that I have no problems talking about because it needs to start to be discussed so that we can make those places safer for people younger than us coming into it. Yep. And I do think there's a huge difference in that. I spend a lot of time online, at least, with younger queer people, and they seem to have a much safer grasp of who they are than what I was able to have when I came. Yep. I thought that I had to go be the thing where, just like you said, you walk into a place and they tell you what your label is because we are labeled the whole time growing up, and then we decide to do it to each other. And at first it's a joke, but then it isn't. There are rules. Mm-hmm. Like if you're a twink, you really shouldn't be hanging out around the bears. Why are you there? And vice versa. Why are you hanging out with drag queens? That's not where you're supposed to be going. Yep. You go sit over there with those muscle queens and you act masculine, and then everyone's going to pretend that you're worth more than everyone. Everybody's got balls in their chin. I don't know why anybody's asking like anybody's better than others. Yep. But it's just a complicated world.
Yep. It's true. And like, it's where, like I had AOL, I guess, but it was dial up. It's not that I didn't have the internet like we had now. And so many of us, which we've talked about on the show a lot, like we find our family and the people that we go to learn what it's like to be queer, how to be queer, especially pre-internet, I would guess. I'm not coming out now, so I can't exactly speak to it, but those were people who had it a lot harder than I have, and they're scarred. I am scarred. I know, like, Pink Milk has had one really rough run-in, and it was really tough for the show. It was tough for me to deal with some of the online stuff that I dealt with. And I tried to do my best with everything. And no, I'm not 20. I'm not 25. I'm 41. And it wasn't as easy for me. And I understand and recognize that it's a lot easier now. But, I did have bricks thrown at me. And some of those bricks left a scar. And they are part of who I am now. And I don't like it. And I can try my best to overcome some of those things. But there are things that are placed on you for so long. It is beaten into your DNA now. And I can acknowledge that we are not in 1995 anymore. But there's still a lot of 1995 in me. And I have to constantly push it back. It's the dark side. I'm Luke Skywalker, and I've got to constantly try to push that back. But there are times when it overcomes and it overtakes. And some of those rules that you were taught on were by people who had it even worse. So they're teaching you their rules of how they had to survive. And it might not have been current anymore in 1995, but those were my teachers. And so there's still a little bit of that. And it's going to take us as a queer community, I think, a long time before a lot of that gets out. Because I can, I've spoken to younger queer people, and I know that sometimes I'm out of touch. And I'm not that old. I am 40, but I'm out of touch, with certain kinds of things. And I think that's one thing that, that's the benefit of Twitter and all of those things, is I do think there are queer kids out there who can find other queer kids and learn what it's like right now. They can find their family 2 states away. They don't have to just look in their 10-mile square radius of the bar scene. And that's who your community is, because that's all we had. And I think it's really interesting. And how that exactly related to Leia, I don't know, but thank you for sharing, because it's not easy.
This is how we do things on my show. I think I brought it over. So at least it didn't crash while we were doing it. And that's all that matters.
Before we go, I am going to ask you something. I'm starting something new with our first guest. You're the first guest I'm speaking to, but you'll be the second guest that airs.
Okay.
So, here in the Berry House, every single night at dinner, we sit at our table and we say our Berry mantra. And that is, we are berries, we support each other, and we have fun. And today I'm grateful for. So, here on Pink Milk, our guests, and I'm throwing you on the spot.
Okay.
This is how the good stuff. We are Star Wars fans. We support each other, and we have fun. Because Lord knows Twitter needs to flip and hear that.
Oh, yeah.
So, I want you to say, I am a Star Wars fan. We support each other, and we have fun. Or we are Star Wars fans. We support each other, and we have fun. And today I am grateful for.
Okay.
And anything.
Yeah, let's go. So, my name is Ben McDonald. I am a Star Wars fan, and we support each other in this fandom, and we have fun. Today, I am so thankful for meeting other people in this fandom through our podcast community. Because with people like Bryan, and then my co-hosts Ian and Maria, Emma, Tom, Mark, Lauren, Andrea, all these people, I could go for hours here. These are people that I've recently just come into contact in the last couple of months. Our podcast started back in September, right? These are people that I met through quote-unquote work, even though very few of us are getting paid to do this. But now these are people that I talk to more than people I've known for 20 years. Because I know that if I'm having a weird day, and it does not have to be Star Wars related, I can reach out to a lot of these people, and we've built our own, like, very interesting, diverse, very opinionated, sometimes right at heads with each other. But we're a little family that we've built out of all this people, and we do care for each other quite a bit. And that's been shocking. I never expected to find this when I jumped into the podcasting world, because I just wanted to talk on the internet. Didn't think that I'd make a bunch of friends. So that's what I'm thankful for today.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for being the first one to do this. I think it's important. I know what we've benefited as a family from doing it, and I really am looking forward to putting that out there. And you're 100% right. I had no idea the amount of support and friendships that I would have gotten out of this when we started this a year and a half ago. There was no way. I legitimately thought, I don't know, we'll have a couple gay people listen to us. There's got to be a few more other gay Star Wars fans. I did not anticipate how many people listened and the diversity of the people in which listen and contribute and engage, and the amount of messages that I receive from people. It is a gift. It is truly a gift. So I'm with you. We are Star Wars fans. We support each other. We have fun. And I am also very, very grateful for this little Star Wars podcast family and a lot of our podcast listeners. It's really amazing. Ben, you're one of them. We have had so many chit chats on and off. I love it. We started our communications before you started a podcast, and you found us through our podcast, and we had formed our little friendship, and then you went off and did this amazing, wonderful podcast, which if any of our listeners have not listened to the Khetanna cast, you really should, because honestly, they're great. They go off the rails with fun and theory and speculation and sometimes just buffoonery, but then some brilliant stuff comes out of all of y'all's mouths that it's really, really great.
Thank you.
I'm really proud of all of you. And Ian's another one, and we met Ian through our queer roundtables and those things. My God, that was when everything changed. I could have never imagined what came out of those. I really, really, really feel those were some really special episodes that were just magic.
Yeah,
And
those episodes changed so much, not just for your show, but for the podcasting community. At least, our little circle, right? My show, look at me, now I'm suddenly important, right? So, our show would not exist if not for the roundtables, because that's how I got in touch with Ian. And Ian and I became friends. And then through that's how we reached out to Maria. And that's how all of that happened.
Yep.
I cannot imagine what it would like to not have those two people in my life in particular, because I love my Ian and my Maria more than almost anyone else on this planet. I'd
awesome.
catch a felony for those people, no problem.
Nope.
But I would not have had that experience if you hadn't reached out to do a roundtable, but you weren't thinking that hard on it when you did it.
Nope.
Because sometimes it's these little choices that we make that have much larger ramifications than what we think we can do, right? So I can tell you right now, as someone who is newer to podcasting, it's the episodes that you really think that you did it on. Those are the ones that don't necessarily quite perform like you think they should. And it's the one where you're like, we had awful, awful sound quality. The computer chopped out 4 times during the interview. And yes, I am speaking about Brian's interview with the Khetanna cast, which has been one of our top performers. And I was so angry at that episode as an editor. I've almost never hated an episode more in my life. I put that thing together, kicked it out of the house. I didn't give it a forwarding address, and people responded to it. So you never know what choices you make are going to have larger ramifications and what's going to speak to people. The only thing that you can do is try to speak from honesty and be proud of who you are, be visible, be diverse, make room for other people, and things will follow. That is the only thing that I could ever tell anybody is be yourself to the point of where it scares you, and that is what is important in life.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think just being honest is so incredibly important, and just speak from your heart. And you know what? You might make a mistake online and on air, and be open to the criticism that may or may not come. Understand when criticism is for the benefit or when criticism is just to tear you down, and do your best to walk away from the ones that just are there to tear you down. A lot easier said than done, but there's so much good that can come out of just being honest and trying to be good and give someone your perspective. It doesn't matter if we're queer. It doesn't matter if who you are. All of us have a unique perspective on life that can be shared because they're only our story. Mm-hmm. So much of Star Wars is about personal stories, and everyone has a personal story. And there might be a lot that's more relatable to a large group of people than none, but no one has the same story. And I think if we talk about our stories, I think there's so much that we can learn from one another. But we can't be afraid to share it either. And we can't be afraid to mess up. And I think that's something, honestly, that Leia would do. Mm-hmm. I think Leia is the kind of person who has put her foot in her mouth more times than she could probably count. But she came from a good place, and because she was willing to put that foot in her mouth, look at all the good that she did. Because there was more times she didn't have to. And I think that's a good way to end this. Ben, where can we find you?
So if you're looking for me, you can find me in my personal Twitter at BenIsTheWorst. You can also hear me whenever it is that we open episodes. I think we're going back to weekly. I don't know. By the time this episode airs, we'll have talked it out. So you can hear me on the Khetanna cast, and you can find us on Twitter at the Khetanna cast. We are a Star Wars podcast that celebrates the saga through our own unique certain points of view, highlighting the viewpoints of queer, non-binary, trans, female, and Black and Indigenous people of color in the fandom. We really are trying to do something fun, and it doesn't have to be important, but it helps to have an outlet. I wish that when I got into fandom that I just knew that there were more people who sounded like me, and even people who didn't. I wish that I knew that it was a broader spectrum than what I was presented.
Yep.
Because it's not a comic book shop. It's not the one that we grew up with, at least.
I wish I had podcasting when the prequels were out, because all I had was a comic book shop.
I don't even want to... Can you imagine what the podcastosphere would have been back during the prequels? God, love those fans.
Oh, no, I signed up on Twitter right before the Rise of Skywalker came out. It was the same conversations that were had in...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Shops. But I could walk out the door and shut it there a lot easier than I could on Twitter. Oh, well, Ben, thank you very, very much. This has been a long time coming, and I'm glad you are here now. So we appreciate you, and what a better topic to hang out with you on than Leia. We'll have you on again when I'm ready to talk some Logray and some Tebow and some Wicket, and we are just going to yub-nub all through. It'll be a pointless, no important conversations coming out of that probably, but then again, it's Star Wars. There's always
we'll find something. Thank you so much for having me on, Brian. I love you so much. You and Tom are just absolutely phenomenal. You've been nothing but supportive. Oh, excuse me. I ran out of breath. I wasn't getting choked up. Also, just want to shout out Emma and Mark. I love them both so very much. These are wonderful, wonderful human beings. Make sure that you support this podcast. Pink Milk is doing something very special. I feel like they're right on the pinnacle of something important. I'm just glad to at least be able to wave at them as they go by off into the sunset. They're just the best. I love these guys so much.
Thank you. Yeah, Emma and Mark have been a gift. One of my 3 gifts of 2020, I got to tell you. Love them. Well, thank you very much, sir. And until next time, we will see you later. And it's time to drink up.
Responsibly.
Boom. Thank you very much, sir. Well, that was a fantastic episode. I appreciate you so much, Ben. Thank you, Leia, for helping show me the resilience that I need during this week. Again, I apologize that not the super upper happy-go-lucky beginning that Ben deserves. But I don't know when we'll be able to get back to this podcast. Like I said, with Tom and I, this has been really, really hard. So we recorded this episode earlier, and I'm releasing it a little ahead of the plan. But make sure to go listen to the Khetanna cast. Follow Ben on Twitter, and I'll put both those links in the show notes below. And make sure you do that. They're really, really great people over there. I am very, very, very appreciative to Ben. And if only I knew how important this episode would have been just a few days later. So thank you, Leia. Thank you for everything you've given me. And thank you, Ben, for being so open and honest, especially towards the back half of this conversation. We get into some things that are not so super easy to talk about, but they're really, really important. So thank you, Ben. Again, follow him at Ben is the Worst and the Khetanna cast, both on Twitter, and those links will be in the show notes below. You can follow the show at servingpinkmilk on Twitter. You can visit our website at servingpinkmilk.com. Our Instagram is at servingpinkmilk also. And make sure to follow us on YouTube at Pink Milk Podcast, where every Friday night, Mark, M, and I deep dive into Star Wars in Pink Milk After Dark. And last but not least, make sure to head on over to Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a written review and a 5-star review. It really does help get the show out there. And I just want to say one final thing. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of our listeners, your words, the listens, all of it, our conversations that we have. They just really, really, really mean a lot. And I'd really appreciate it if some of y'all could send some extra love to my Tommy. He really needs it. And until we do this again, hopefully it won't be too long of a break. But, you know, like I said, it's tough over here right now. So it might be a minute before Tom and I are here talking and hanging out again. Until then, we love you. We appreciate you. And until next time, drink up.